It's been 24 hours since the preliminary hearing began, and now day 2 has already turned into a wild ride. I'm going to quickly break down the biggest moments, including the strongest points for the prosecution, the biggest wins for the defense, and then I'll tell you everything about X. Then things really blew up with a major clash between Candace and Andrew that quickly spiraled out of control. Candace began sharing screenshots of messages with Charlie. Andrew Kolvet kept saying Charlie was only managing the situation because he believed that if she became angry, she could seriously damage TPUSA. It was an intense exchange. Today, he even suggested he might release information about Candace and the circumstances surrounding her departure from TPUSA back in 2019. The back and forth kept getting more intense. I want to remind everyone that we're here to find the truth above everything else. Whatever happens in that courtroom, the goal should be truth and fairness. Let's watch everything unfold with a calm, level-headed approach and focus on the facts. So far this week, no hard evidence has been presented. Instead, there have been hearsay statements, alleged reports, and accounts shared by different people. The trial itself is expected to reveal much more as it moves forward. Right now, the prosecution is trying to have TR's case move on to trial. Barron said they believe they've already won and are confident it will happen. Even so, after the first day of hearings, their position didn't appear especially strong. Now, let's look at the biggest wins for each side. So here are the prosecution's top 5 points for building probable cause. First, Officer Bagley's timeline stood out. He was one of the witnesses and described the rifle shot, the chaos that followed, a quick arrest that was not connected to the main case, roof access with what investigators described as a sniper-like setup, a gravel impression, and a screwdriver. One detail people noticed was the screwdriver story. According to the testimony, his body camera battery died just as he reached the roof and was about to record the screwdriver, which quickly became a talking point. Second, several videos were admitted, including TPUS AUVU surveillance footage, cell phone video, ring camera footage that reportedly captured the shooting, and video showing Robinson's vehicle moving around campus. Third, Investigator Hall gave an overview of the investigation. That included vehicle tracking, a DMV match, an in-court identification of Robinson, and testimony that Robinson surrendered the following day. The autopsy findings were also admitted, including testimony that the fatal injury involved a wound to the neck. The judge overruled most of the objections, allowing several key exhibits and identifications to be presented. There were also plenty of unexpected moments during the hearing. At times, the back and forth became so unusual that many people watching commented on how chaotic it felt. Now, here are the defense's top 5 points for highlighting possible gaps in the prosecution's case. First, the defense focused on UVU security issues. They argued there were no metal detectors or drones, only 6 officers on site, and that Officer Bagley did not receive the security briefing. At the same time, there was also testimony and discussion about a drone being in the air before Charlie arrived. So that became another point of debate. Bagley also testified that he found an empty pistol holster but did not collect it and did not know whether it had been fingerprinted. Second, the defense pointed to inconsistencies involving the rifle shot timeline. Third, they highlighted that Bagley's body camera battery died, leaving only about 27 minutes of footage and no recharge during the chaotic response. Fourth, the defense made several successful objections that limited the use of some graphic videos and restricted certain autopsy material, images showing minors' faces, and other private details. Finally, they challenged parts of the evidence handling, questioned authenticity and hearsay issues, and raised concerns about early confusion surrounding potential suspects. One detail that really stood out was the discussion about the evidence transfer. According to testimony and arguments raised during the hearing, Farnsworth did not turn over the original SD cards to the FBI in September, as some had believed. Instead, it was stated that he copied the footage and provided it on a flash drive. That became a major point of discussion because the defense suggested it could raise questions about how the evidence was handled. Now for the top 3 wow moments. First, graphic shooting video was described and viewed privately by the court. During that portion, members of the Kirk family, including Erica and Charlie's parents, were seen leaving the courtroom. Second, Investigator Hall made a direct in-court identification of Robinson. When asked whether he believed the person shown in the video was Robinson, he answered, yes. That testimony drew plenty of attention, although people may have different views on how persuasive they found it. Third, the defense returned to the issue of the uncollected holster and also highlighted that Bagley's body camera battery died after he reached the roof, where investigators were examining possible sniper-related evidence. Those points became some of the biggest talking points from the day. While all of that was unfolding in court, a completely different dispute was playing out on X between Candace and Andrew Kolvet. I have to say, Andrew's recent posts and his increasingly aggressive tone on X caught my attention. There are a few theories about why this has been happening, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But first, here's what Candace posted yesterday. There was a flood of activity on X throughout the night. One more fight, Charlie. I don't fear these demons. We will win. She then wrote, today the Tyler Robinson show trial begins. Candace described it as a show trial and argued that evidence, such as text message confessions, would be presented even though, according to her, the defense had not been able to fully examine those messages to determine whether they had been altered or who actually sent them. She also claimed that the FBI and ATF were not required to turn over certain evidence despite multiple discovery requests, because, according to the judge's ruling, it was not necessary at this stage of the proceedings. She went on to say that testimony from Lance Twiggs would be presented, but that he would not be available for cross-examination because, according to the court's ruling, it was not required at this stage. Candace argued that the hearing was driven more by emotion than by a full opportunity for the defense to challenge the government's case. She also predicted that, alongside Erica's emotional reaction, several commentators she described as paid influencers would argue that the evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. That claim has become another major point of debate online. Candace ended her post by saying, sit back and watch the predictable show. The real trial will come later. Charlie's army is growing. Ultimately, truth will win. Not long after that, Andrew Kolvet fired back. Over the past few days, he has been posting frequently on X, but during the last 24 hours, his responses became even more direct and confrontational. Andrew wrote, Candace, you and Charlie were not friends. He managed you. He kept things light and polite so you wouldn't turn on the organization. Show me any proof of genuine friendship from the last 12 months of his life, from the last 18 months, from the last 24 months. Not some 2018 text, something recent. He continued by claiming, remember, he requested it. You gave him anxiety whenever you called or texted asking, demanding to speak at our events. He made me or Justin deal with you and George. Andrew also claimed that when Candace allegedly tried to hire him for PR in February 2024, he initially agreed because, according to him, Charlie wanted him to keep her close and protect the organization. He went on to say that a publicist he approached to lead the effort prayed about it, felt called to decline, and that he ultimately decided not to move forward with the arrangement. Andrew continued by writing, "This is your central foundational lie. You were not his friend. You are not his defender. You were his tormentor. And now you torment his wife and the organization he built. Candace, you are a fraud." Seeing that kind of language surprised me. It felt very different from the more restrained approach he had taken before, especially considering the earlier calls to pray for Candace instead of escalating the conflict. Then Blake Neff joined the conversation. He wrote, "As Charlie once told us, Candace is very easy to understand once you realize all she cares about is money. Speaking only for myself, I have a hard time accepting that particular claim. I'm trying to stay as impartial as possible and look at this from the perspective of an outside observer. I do appreciate some of Candace's work, but I'm also trying to be fair in how I evaluate what everyone is saying. Based on what I've personally seen over the years, that specific statement doesn't match my impression of her, although others may see it differently." Candace then responded saying, not that Andrew Kolvet could sink any lower by lying about how Charlie felt and whom he supported, but today he's promoting the NCRI, the creators of the Christ is King is Anti-Semitic study. I covered this in much more detail in my last episode, so if you want the full background, you can check that out afterward. Candace continued by writing, "Charlie was actually the one who texted me that report. He was sickened by their crap. Charlie specifically sent me the tweet from Andrew's first PR partner, Reverend Johnny Moore." She then referred to a post by Johnny Moore criticizing him and Andrew Kolvet. In response, Candace shared what she said was a text exchange with Charlie. According to the screenshots she posted, Charlie sent her the tweet and wrote, "Oh my God. Can you believe this crap?" Candace replied, "This is nuts. Christianity is being attacked." The response shown from Charlie was 100%. Candace also added another comment in the same thread, writing, "Nice touch having your old partner quarterback this study, referring to me as an asshole the day of the TR trial. Andrew Kolvet, keep it going. I am nowhere near my max setting, and like I said, I want war with all of you traitors." Those posts quickly became another major flashpoint in the ongoing public dispute, with supporters and critics on both sides weighing in. Candace ended by saying, "Give it your best shot." Andrew responded, "Lol. Okay, Candace, I haven't seen Johnny in years and have quite literally nothing to do with this study. Johnny and I disagreed on a ton. So what? And I agree the Christ is King thing was garbage, but in this case you have absolutely contributed to threats aimed at Erica. I've witnessed them, so their conclusion here is hard to argue with. They have evidence of it, in fact. But the biggest problem you have is that you have no evidence for any of your theories, just vibes, bile, and dreams." At this point, a broader pattern stood out to me. For years, Charlie and many people connected to his show, including Andrew when he filled in, often encouraged viewers to question government claims and official narratives. They argued that authorities had been wrong before, and Charlie publicly defended Candace during the Christ is King controversy, saying she had been treated unfairly. Now, with this case, the message seems very different. From my perspective, some of the same voices who previously urged skepticism now appear to place much greater confidence in the official investigation. That shift has become a major topic of debate online, with different people interpreting it in very different ways. Candace kept the exchange going by writing, "I'm glad you finally came to the surface, Rat. Your previous employees told me it was you and Erica who were working with YouTubers to push the completely false narrative that Charlie and I were not friends and that he had anxiety around me. She continued by claiming, "You also worked together to spread false claims about his interest in Catholicism and to promote the narrative that I secretly loved Charlie and hadn't spoken to him since 2019, even though I toured with him through May 2024. Your claims are easy to disprove." Candace also responded to Andrew's comments about TPUSA events, writing, "I simply could not have demanded to speak at any TPUSA event because we had a speaker contract that renewed every year, Andrew. That meant I never had to beg or even request a speaking slot because I was contractually scheduled to appear at every major TPUSA event each year." She finished that part by adding, "It's also completely ridiculous to suggest he didn't pick up my calls because I rarely called in the first place." Candace continued, "Anyone who knows me knows I almost never call people or answer phone calls, but since you've made this claim so many times, I'm going to take the easy route and release every time I dialed Charlie's number over the last 3 years. As soon as I'm back on air, I'll make those records public." Thankfully, phone logs go back 5 years. She added, "I simply prefer to text, and I thank God for that, because those messages have allowed me to challenge what I believe are your false claims about Charlie." Candace then turned back to Andrew's broader argument, writing, "Your biggest problem is that you're wrong. You claimed we never spoke, yet I just shared messages of Charlie and me discussing your partner Johnny Moore's attack on Christ is King. According to me, that conversation was started by Charlie, and those messages are dated May 2025. She finished by saying, "But let's hear Charlie in his own words regarding our friendship, shall we?" Candace then pointed to what she said was a recording from August 21st, 2025, about 3 weeks before his death, arguing that it showed Charlie publicly describing her as his friend and making clear he would not let others pressure him to distance himself from that friendship. Candace continued, "Also, the night before he died, he texted you saying he wanted me back at AmFest after your backers pushed to keep me off the AmFest 2024 lineup. Why did he text Justin and say he wanted me back? Do you deny that happened? Those were, according to me, some of Charlie's final wishes." She then challenged Andrew directly, writing, "So was Charlie saying one thing publicly and something different in private conversations just weeks before he died? Andrew? Or are you trying to rewrite history by convincing people that his closest friends were others instead?" Candace concluded that post by saying, "Despite the millions of dollars spent, the world sees what is real. Truth cannot be destroyed." After that, she shared a video of Charlie speaking, presenting it as support for her position. Let me show you that clip quickly so you can see what she pointed to.
Relationship with Candace Owens nowadays.
She's a great friend. You know, look, I don't agree with everything Candace says, but you know what I don't do? I don't stop being friends with people just because people morally blackmail me. I don't do that, and you shouldn't either. But honestly, I traveled the country with Candace. I went to her wedding. I saw her meet her husband. I went to Israel with Candace, which is a fun story I'll tell you at some point. So I think the world of Candace. She's a great mother. She certainly has very, very fun opinions at times, and she's a great talent. She says a lot of stuff that sometimes I don't agree with, but that's what makes our relationship and our friendship.
Candace then started posting screenshot after screenshot from what she said were her conversations with Charlie. Before I show you those messages, here's the main issue at the center of this dispute. Back in September, Andrew Kolvet publicly stated that Charlie and Candace were friends. He even reportedly sent a correction to the New York Post after it published claims from Eric Bolling, suggesting they had quietly fallen out and had not spoken for years. According to the report, Andrew, speaking as a TPUSA spokesperson, told the Post that Charlie and Candace had remained friends. That's why the recent change in his public comments has caught so much attention. Now, Andrew is arguing that Charlie was simply managing the relationship rather than being a genuine friend. From my perspective, that's a significant shift in the public narrative. Others may interpret it differently, but it's one reason this exchange has generated so much discussion online. That impression became even stronger for me after seeing a post Andrew shared from another account. Let's take a look at that. See if you notice the same theme. Joshua Hames wrote, "Charlie and Candace weren't friends. I have spent the last year getting to know the leadership at TPUSA." The post continued, "I've spent hours talking with Charlie Kirk's closest friends, and every one of them has told me essentially the same thing. Candace and Charlie were not really friends. Everyone has a story about how difficult Candace was to work with, and instead of a close friendship, Charlie was simply managing the relationship so it wouldn't turn into a conflict. They rarely spoke, and when they did, it was mostly about work." One thing immediately caught my attention. The word managing kept coming up. Andrew had written, "He managed you." And now another post was describing Charlie as managing the relationship. Seeing the same wording repeated in the same debate stood out to me. After that, Candace began posting what she described as receipts. She wrote, "Andrew has recently been pushing the narrative that Charlie distanced himself from me. Here is Andrew's own message in a text chain with me and Charlie from May 2024 denying that claim. Charlie had my back 100%. His donors were the ones pressuring him, and he always told me he believed the Daily Wire was behind the sudden push. Truth wins." Candace then shared what she said was a message from Andrew that read, "Geez, we're not distancing ourselves from you. We have a bunch of donors who want us to, but we deal with them one-on-one, and this website is a resource explaining things." Those screenshots quickly became another major point of debate, with people arguing over what they did or did not show about the relationship between Charlie, Candace, and TPUSA. The message continued, "Most of them are fine once we sit down and talk with them. I wonder if it's Ben personally or the Daily Wire. Pretty dirty." Candace then shared what she said was a FaceTime exchange in which Charlie told her, "Candace, we are with you 100%. She followed that by writing, "Charlie supposedly had so much anxiety about our friendship, yet he was the one starting conversations with me about the fallout from October 7th. It's strange to claim someone was afraid of you while also showing them repeatedly reaching out." Candace also shared another exchange in which Charlie sent her a link, and she replied, "Unreal." She then addressed Andrew directly, writing, "Hey Andrew, the reason I haven't shared much of the more recent material is because a lot of it involves people who were strongly supporting that issue. I've mostly kept it to memes and commentary, but with your permission, we can go all in today. Do you want me to keep sharing, Andrew?" Andrew responded by reposting one of Candace's screenshots, the one including the message, "Candace, we are with you 100%, and added, "Yep, sounds exactly like what someone would say to a person they're trying to manage." That exchange only added more attention to the back and forth, with both sides pointing to the same messages while arguing for completely different interpretations. Things escalated even more after that, and Andrew kept responding with a series of posts. At this point, it was starting to look like the exchange wasn't slowing down anytime soon. Referring to the video where Charlie spoke about his friendship with Candace, Andrew wrote, "I was actually with Charlie at this event. We traveled together that entire week." He continued, "First, as Charlie says in the clip, he would never let someone morally blackmail him into condemning another person. That's one of the things I admired about him. What this clip shows, in my view, is that he was a gentleman who believed a personal relationship meant someone shouldn't be publicly attacked. He's very clear about that. You may also notice he's trying to explain your opinions, even though he didn't agree with all of them." Andrew then added a second point, writing, "When Charlie got off the stage, the first thing he asked me as we walked to the car was how I thought he handled the Candace question. He said he knew people would eventually see the clip and wanted my honest opinion about how it came across. I told him he handled it well, and he replied that the questions about Candace were only going to continue as, in his view, her commentary became more controversial. Andrew continued, "We have to be ready for them. He was walking on eggshells, Candace, because he believed he was one clip away from you turning on him in the organization. Hope that helps." That was a strong claim. One thing I noticed, though, is that Andrew was describing his view of what Charlie was thinking and feeling. From my perspective, those statements were presented as his account, rather than being backed up with additional evidence in those posts. Everyone can judge for themselves how convincing they find that. It's one of the reasons I wondered whether the back and forth was encouraging Candace to release even more private messages. The more screenshots she posted, the more personal information entered the public conversation. Personally, I'm not sure that's a good direction for either side, and I was surprised by how many private exchanges ended up being shared. Candace then replied, "Yeah, I know you were there. You texted me and asked me to push the clip, remember? If not, hope this helps." After that, she posted yet another screenshot, adding another layer to the already heated exchange. Candace then shared another exchange that she said was with Andrew. In it, he wrote, "Hey, FYI, we have a clip of CK defending his relationship with you coming out. He was asked at an event why he didn't denounce you, and he was like, because we're actual real friends, and I don't appreciate being publicly blackmailed." That was basically the response. It was fantastic. Candace replied, "Amazing, we'll share." She also posted another exchange about an article with a headline claiming Charlie Kirk had called out Candace's alleged lies. According to the screenshots, Andrew responded, "This is a lie. He said, 'Why would I debate Candace?'" Candace answered, "All good, LOL. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff." Andrew then added, "Yeah, just flagging it so you didn't think we were being petty about something." Looking at all of this together, I can understand why some people see a tension between the public statements being discussed and Andrew's more recent descriptions of Charlie's private views. Others may interpret those messages differently, but that contrast has become a major part of the online debate surrounding this exchange. No matter which version of the story someone finds more convincing, the situation raises difficult questions. Candace then wrote, "Charlie Kirk was worried about speech censorship coming to America under the guise of protecting Jews from anti-Semitism. I know because he texted me about it." To support that point, she shared what she said was a text conversation about a post from Charlie regarding Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lishinsky. In the post, Charlie wrote that they were two beautiful young people with their whole lives ahead of them, described their killings as senseless, evil, and horrifying, and said the person responsible should face the maximum legal punishment. According to the screenshots Candace shared, she replied, "Great tweet." Charlie then responded, "Thank you. Speech censorship is coming to America." Candace answered, "It totally is." Looking at the broader discussion, one issue that keeps coming up is how public commentary can affect later debates about speech and responsibility. Recently, there have been reports and claims linking Candace's commentary to an increase in threats directed at Erica Kirk. That has led some people to argue for greater caution when discussing Erica publicly, while others see it as part of a larger debate over free expression and accountability. Of course, nobody wants anything to happen to Erica. The question some people are asking is where this discussion leads from here. Does concern about possible consequences mean people should avoid expressing their opinions, or is that a separate issue? Some see it as a debate about free speech, while others disagree. You can decide for yourself. Candace then posted another message, writing, "Charlie Kirk was repeatedly under attack and asked me to defend him when he was wrongly accused of anti-Semitism. I know because he texted me and asked me to tweet about it. His views began to change after October 7th. He never bought the official story. To support that claim, she shared what she said was another text exchange. It included a New York Times headline reading, "Charlie Kirk, long accused of anti-Semitism, is set for a primetime speech." According to these screenshots, Charlie responded, "Okay, now I've seen everything." Candace replied, "Oh my God, that's hilarious." Charlie then wrote, "You gotta tweet about it. Can't wait to pull this into my show tomorrow." Candace answered, "Yes, I'll tweet it. Seriously, that's hilarious." Those were some of the more recent screenshots Candace posted as the online dispute continued to escalate. These screenshots were from 2024 and 2025. Candace argued that Charlie had a very negative view of the New York Times. She also pointed out that after his passing, Erica's first major sit-down interview was with the New York Times, highlighting what she saw as an interesting contrast. Candace then shared another post, writing, "Charlie Kirk, like many young men, admired Jordan Peterson, but later became concerned about what he viewed as hypocrisy in some of Peterson's comments after October 7th. I know because he texted me about it. We always texted like friends, and we constantly shared jokes and memes. People are not going to rewrite Charlie Kirk's history or erase his real friendships. His views were changing. He was exploring Catholicism. I have always told the truth." To support that claim, Candace posted another screenshot that she said came from one of their conversations. In it, Charlie wrote, "I'll find a funny meme I saw." The meme featured a quote attributed to Jordan Peterson. "In order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive." It then contrasted that quote with a later statement criticizing Nick Fuentes, creating the point that Candace was trying to make about what she viewed as a change in tone. Candace then shared another screenshot that she said showed Charlie sending her a meme, adding, "I don't like Nick, but this is hilarious." Andrew Kolvet responded, writing, "Candace, he was finding things he could connect with you on to placate you. When it came to the harder conversations, for example, when you publicly claimed Charlie had agreed to debate Fuentes without asking his permission and tried to push that debate, he had me deal with you directly. I'm sorry you have to find out this way." Reading that exchange, one thing stood out to me. Andrew was describing what he says happened behind the scenes, but in those posts, he wasn't sharing messages or other supporting material alongside those claims. That's something viewers will likely weigh for themselves as they compare both sides. Candace pushed back, writing, "First, it was that Charlie never spoke to me and was afraid of me. Now it's that we spoke and texted all the time, but he was only pretending and trying to placate me." She continued, "So, to be clear, Charlie sent me pictures of himself with his son and daughter at the hospital after they were born because he was just trying to placate me? Or was he simply texting me whenever something important was happening in his life?" Candace continued, "When Erica was rushed to the hospital in February 2024 because of a preterm labor scare, which thankfully turned out okay, was Charlie sharing that personal moment just to placate me? You are a clown. You tried, but all you've done today is expose yourself as someone who keeps changing the story." She went on to write, "Charlie and I were always friends. We never stopped talking, and we always had each other's backs. You can't erase that." Andrew responded by arguing that Candace's own screenshots actually supported his position. According to him, the messages showed that Charlie and others were careful about how they communicated with her because they wanted to avoid creating unnecessary conflict. He suggested that when they reached out about certain situations, it was part of managing a difficult relationship rather than evidence of a close friendship. The exchange didn't stop there. Candace kept posting additional screenshots, one after another. When someone in the comments questioned why she was sharing so many private messages, she replied that Andrew had effectively prompted her to do it through his public claims. The back and forth only grew more intense from there. Remember how this started? Andrew had challenged Candace to show proof of recent contact, saying he wanted evidence from 2024 or 2025 rather than older messages. After Candace began posting those screenshots, Andrew responded again with what was, at the time, his latest post. He wrote, "Lol, you were always friends, always. Are you sure you want to go with that, Candace? Do you want to tell everyone about your departure from Turning Point back in 2019? Or should I? Or should we go back to the claim that you weren't friends with Charlie at the end and that you have no proof for your theories? Your narcissism and selfishness over the years have given me plenty to talk about." That exchange immediately caught people's attention because the tone had become much more confrontational. In the replies, one person commented, "Please do it. That's a critical information gap for those of us trying to understand the full timeline." Andrew then replied, "Hint, it wasn't a friendly exit." At this point, it's hard to predict where this public dispute goes next. Both sides have continued raising the stakes, and the exchange has only become more intense. Let me quickly check whether there have been any new posts since then. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there were more updates. And in fact, there was. Candace posted, "No truer words, Charlie. Let them mock and slander. It isn't working. We have the truth on our side." She included a video with the post, so let's watch that clip now.
I saw Candace Owens. You're friends with Candace, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm laughing because Candace and I she actually worked for Turning Point for a couple of years. She was our communications director. So yeah, I know Candace. She's a really good friend. She's phenomenal.
Well, I just saw a video of hers. A lot of my friends were sharing out just recently. I don't know if you saw it, but basically she's saying, "People, you better stand the fuck up real quick." That sounds like an alarmist, but at the end of the day, how real is that?
Look, Candace is exactly right. That if people don't wake up and start to do something and start to stand up and honestly say, "I don't care," kind of what you call me or what, pejorative you throw at me or how you mock me or ridicule me or slander me, I'm going to stand for truth. And I know it's right. And it's a very decent American principle, which is you should be able to succeed and to take risks and be an entrepreneur without having this kind of overwhelming totalitarian.
Once again, I have no idea how this is going to end. What stands out to me is just how intense this public fight has become. Both Candace and Andrew have continued raising the temperature, and the exchange keeps getting more heated. For months, Candace had been relatively restrained when it came to sharing private conversations and text messages with Charlie. That makes me wonder whether Andrew's repeated challenges played a role in her deciding to post more of those messages. Now, Andrew is also suggesting he may release information about Candace's departure from TPUSA, which raises another obvious question. Why now? From my perspective, it feels like emotions are running especially high during the hearing, but that's only my interpretation. If I had one piece of advice, it would be not to let public provocations drive the conversation. I also find myself wondering whether Andrew's approach reflects his own decisions or a broader communication strategy, but there's no way to know that based on the public posts alone. I'll keep updating you on everything happening in and around the trial, so be sure to check back here for new videos every day. As always, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Candace and Charlie were friends? And does that question even matter at this point? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it with others.